was a weird time. COVID was a weird situation.
Would anybody like an agenda that doesn't have one?
I'll take one. Thanks, Sarah.
Jared, I don't know if you've met our city clerk and deputy city clerk.
Jared
and Sam. Okay. Jared, what was it? First Word Action Council.
Yes, I've known Jared for
Firm.
quite a while. All right, folks, I'm gonna disappear. If you have any technical difficulties, Sarah, come get me, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hold on, just wait a minute. Morning. Nasa said she was going to try and join.
Vanessa did say that she was going to join on, but she could also always watch it.
So, oh, it's live already.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize. All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a planning committee meeting of City Council. It's Thursday, March 28th, 2024. Clerk can call the roll.
Councilmember Kavanaugh,
Present.
Councilmember Hotchkiss,
Present.
Councilmember Dundon is also present, and our three presenters are here.
So the first item we have is introductory resolution 24-59. This is ordinance to amend the 2019 and 2020 HUD admin housing budget for consideration of unused lines for spending on a housing program. Tell us everything.
So the money that, and to answer a previous question, this is money from about 5 years ago that we received at the start of COVID. To receive this money from HUD, we had to do what's called an amendment to the action plan halfway through the year we were in. In addition, HUD gave us an additional allotment several months later. So when we say 45 and 46, it's actually one annual action plan. We had to amend twice. This is essentially, I forget how much of that total, I think about 2 million in CDBG and I think about 2 million in ESG funding. This was COVID money. The requirement for this was projects had to impact or affect or help prevent COVID and future COVID and disease outbreaks. So the usage of this money is somewhat limited. It has to be COVID related. We did several different projects with that, rent assistance, mortgage assistance. We help businesses, we help nonprofits. We even had some for administrative expenses. But we've gotten to the point now where it's been almost 5 years since, well, 4 years, 4.5 years since. We're getting to the part where finding a still eligible use for this money is becoming exceedingly difficult. Right now, we only have essentially 3 active programs using the COVID money. One is, my mic went blank. One is helping Chow to install cool storage equipment in food pantries. One of our definitions of COVID is if you are homeless or you're low income, you're more, well, if you're homeless specifically, you're more at risk from COVID. So we're hoping that, sorry, that's a subpart. COVID impacted people's house income so that there's essentially people have less money now. And so they need access to this food. That was the one thing there. Another one we have is, can you help me?
Is it ACA?
ACA, we're doing HVAC improvements. The HVAC improvements are specifically including sanitation, the UV light things to help do that. And there's one more. Why is my brain not functioning? There's one more, and I honestly can't remember what. There's a third. Oh, business assistance. So businesses that lost employees because of COVID and are in low, sort of provide a low-income service area, which is really any business that is near or in a low-income area that reasonably can provide services, restaurant, bars, hair salons, even a real estate agency, because it's in a low-income area, so people could theoretically use it. Helping them essentially try to get people back into the workforce, helping them look for employees and advertise and stuff like that. So those are the current 3 projects. We did run rent assistance and mortgage assistance for several years, and it just kind of petered out.
I find that so hard to believe.
We actually paid United Way to market to people.
It requires a tie to COVID, this specific product.
Yes, it has to be tied. You have to, the reason to qualify for rent assistance or mortgage assistance, you have to be of a particular income or lower, have been impacted by COVID financially and can prove it. And you have to have proof of arrears. In essence, this is HUD's requirements. Yeah, no, it was fine. You have to basically say, I'm behind on my mortgage or I'm behind on my rent. I can give you the numbers and here's this.
So that looks like it was $212,000 after that program.
Yep, we simply, so this is what United Way did. They did 2 months, they did direct mailings, 2 months of targeted emails and mobile display ads, 4 months of social media ads, 2 months of audience network display ads. Most of those were through the newspaper. We also had a backpack giveaway through the CARES program that pretty much any student being into the school system could get a free backpack, including in that for 2 years in a row, we had essentially an advertisement in there saying, hey, if you need financial assistance or anything like that, with rent and mortgage, please contact XYZ. So after all of that, and you'll see here, I'll go through this. With rent assistance, a lot of the rent assistance actually qualified under ESG and CDBG. ESG was more time limited. They spent all the ESG, but between ESG and rent assistance, there's probably been approximately 110, 120 households accepted. I put 28 here. That's what Finn's reported. It dawned on me they haven't given me a final report. It's likely more closer to 40 people with the CDBG rent assistance. Whereas with the ESG, which is not part of this, but I wanted to do it as comparison, they were able to help about 77 people. Comes to about $5,000 per household for rent assistance. Our mortgage assistance program, we were able to help 20 households at approximately $1,800 per household. That was for both the mortgage and, well, mortgage was mortgage, rent was rent, but in both of those, they could also get help with arrears for utilities, water, NYSEG. They couldn't do like cable. They couldn't do anything like that. It had to be some direct payment to essentially an essential type service. So we were able to provide that, but that, I don't know when our last mortgage one was, but it was approximately 2 years ago. We advertised, we sought out, we tried to tell people it was available. And at the end of the day, out of both mortgage and rental assistance programs, maybe 130 or 140 people were assisted, or households were assisted.
I'm stuck thinking, what was the statewide program for rent assistance?
I know that there were, and we had to make sure nobody was double dipping. So that was, we
Right.
did that through the coordinated entry system.
There you go.
Oh, the ERAP, yeah.
That was, I know the acronym, I talked about it all the time before, but yeah, and I feel like ERAP, that was something that everybody they wanted to have more funding in it because it was getting spent so fast. Which I'm not saying you're.
Would be outside the city of Binghamton.
Yeah, and just
Thanks.
like that's why I'm surprised because I feel like that money was.
I can tell you, we did, and I showed up here, we gave $32,000 for Fairview recovery out of the CDBG line. We gave them a lot more also out of ESG. They ran what's called the coordinated entry system. What that was someone could call 211, and this is what we always directed people to. Hi, I need help with rent. I need help with mortgage, or I'm homeless or about to be homeless. With that call, they went to a centralized location. This existed beforehand, but it really cranked up under COVID. And they had to expand, and we helped them expand. They basically found the best program for everybody. Oh, you're out of rent, but you fall within this income category. You need to go to this program or this program or this program, depending on what your situation was. So that was a way of, and it helped deal with ERAP. It helped deal with preventing double dipping. It helped with all of that. So we tried to get people to sign up as much as we could.
I
and-
believe you.
yeah.
I'm not
So
trying to
this
give you a hard
United,
time. I'm just,
$16,000
For the
on
marketing
advertise, to
plan.
market, to
Yeah.
give out.
2 months of targeted emails, 4 months of
Right,
social
no, I see
media ads.
that.
Yeah. So we strongly tried to get this out the door and let people know about the programs that we had available. So at the end of the day, we're at a position where we still have all this money in these lines, and we need to find a usage for them that has to be directly related with COVID. Like I said before, we identify being homeless as being at risk for COVID. And so the housing idea is to help an agency develop new housing. New housing helps reduce, new housing, especially housing targeted towards low-income individuals, can help reduce the need for, or the spread of homelessness in the area, because then people that are at that lower income can find a better place to live. And that's how we're essentially saying we're going to try to do new housing or rehab of existing housing to get people into units. So that's it. We simply have all this money. We had the best intentions of the world. We had mortgage assistance revised, $350,000 available, about $370,000 in rent assistance. We advertised, and at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's client-based. Clients have to apply for the programs, and that's what we had. And then there's a very tiny amount that came out of admin. That's nothing. I don't even try to get admin expenses because it's too difficult to track separately from my existing. So
The problem we're having now too, the new problem is that the further we get away from COVID, the harder it is for people to tie challenges paying rent and mortgage to
To
the
COVID.
pandemic. At least according to HUD.
Yeah.
Steve has done a lot of work going back and forth with HUD, like, well, what about this? Can we say that this is like, the pandemic affected everything, so can we,
but not their common sense.
but
But
yeah.
not HUD's common sense.
HUD's been strict on these.
Yes.
Okay, so there's $474,373.98 left.
We basically want to pour that into one pool of program assistance. Program assistance is probably the most flexible sort of pool of money we have. It's not a new line, it's an existing line. It can essentially almost be used for anything. And so we think just pouring it in there will allow us to help almost anyone, but we would like to use it for essentially new housing. New low-income targeted housing.
And you said anybody could apply for this, because there was some nice presentations at the work session from the land trust that was looking for some kind of funding. So would they be able to apply for this and building new low-income housing that would follow these parameters?
Potentially, yes.
It has
But
to be a children, right?
no, it's CDBG. So potentially, yes. Any agency that's providing housing would be able to access these funds. As long as they meet the requirements, some fairly strict CDBG requirements.
anybody got anything else? Thank you. It's a lot to look at from the thank you. Next one we got is introduction resolution 24-60, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into agreement with the First Ward Action Council for CBY 45 and CBY 46 CDBG funds, the amount not to exceed $577,190 to support the development of affordable housing. Tell us all about this project that you got going on.
Okay, so as you said, this is authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with First Ward Action Council for funding to support affordable housing. The project will create between 37 and 39 units of quality, safe, affordable housing for low-income residents in the city of Binghamton. The First Ward Action Council plans to rehab 7 blighted buildings and do new construction on 2 of them. Jerry Willard, I think we've all met him, if not prior, just now. He's the executive director of the First Ward Action Council. He will get into all the details and answer all the nitty-gritty questions you might have on the project itself. But I wanted to give a little preamble first and just say the city's worked with Jerry before. He has a very strong track record. You can see his project on Front Street, in Noma on Crandall and North Street. where he's created affordable housing and revitalized those neighborhoods. And this project, we would be looking to do more of the same. So one other note on this before I turn it over to Jerry is we are partnering with the county executive on this. The county will be applying for Restore New York grant funds to support this project. I think approximately $3 million, but they're still working out the final application. There's a timeliness component to this. So in order for there to be the commitment of these dollars that's required for the grant application, City Council would have to vote on this early May at the latest. I think it would be the May 8th business meeting. Would allow us to have that commitment of funds in place in order to show it on the Restore New York grant application.
Just before Jerry jumps in, I'll say that there was also a HUD timeliness requirement here as well. The CDBG COVID funds must be fully expended, I believe 2025, September 2025, but it may be September 2026. But either way, 1 to 2 years, not a long amount of time to try to find a separate project that's ready to go.
So how much is part of this 577 coming from the stuff we're about to move?
Yes.
474. So
This will essentially use up with that movement of funds, but also what we have in existing lines that are already eligible for that would use up all of the COVID, at least obligate all of the COVID funds that we still have remaining into a final project.
That'll help us meet that timeliness
Yep.
requirement from HUD. And then Jerry, because I write in 37 or 39 units.
37 at this point.
37, okay, go ahead, yeah, take it away.
Okay, well, this project is similar to a couple we recently completed in the city of Binghamton. Most recently known of the North Main project. The buildings are on, in that project were on Matter Street and North Street. Scattered site project like this one. Prior to that, we had completed a project on Crandall Street, which involved a real entire transformation of Crandall Street. I know Robert used to own a building on Crandall.
my dad, yeah.
The projects provide affordable housing, but in addition to that, one of our goals has always been to improve the neighborhood as much as we can. So that we're doing two things. We're providing the housing, but improving the neighborhood, removing slums, replacing them with attractive, affordable housing, and hopefully creating a better environment for additional investment. The project we did on Front Street, that was completed maybe 6 years ago. That was called the Binghamton Gateway. We did several buildings on Front, converting some of the worst slums on the street. You know, we get comments, we're still getting comments about how good those buildings look, which, you know, every time we do one of these projects, there are critics out there that will say, you know, they're going to be wrecked. You're going to spend all this money and they're going to be wrecked in a year or two. Well, the first project we did on Front Street was done 20 years ago. The big Victorian houses down by the health department. You know, they're at the point where they need work again, but I mean, they're generally in pretty good condition. We maintain our properties. We serve, you know, low to mod income population. There's regulatory period on the properties, on the projects, connected to the funding that we get. The amount of money that the city puts in is important, showing local support, but it's definitely not enough to do the project. We go to New York State Homes and Community Renewal for an allocation of tax credits. We've been fortunate in getting that sort of funding for all of these projects. In addition, we'll have money from the New York State Housing Trust Fund, loans from the Housing Trust Fund, and you know, a variety of other sources. This project is, as we were saying, 9 sites. 2 of them are new construction. One is a smaller project, new construction on Front Street, which is going to be a 3-family house. But on Clinton Street, we're going to be doing a 3-story building, hopefully brick building on Clinton Street on the corner of Murray and Clinton. A long time ago, I don't know if anybody remembers, there was a coal tower there. But that's been gone for quite some time. But that's going to have 2 storefronts on the first floor, 15 apartments.
So how does that match up with like the old Lincoln Hotel site structure?
It's very similar, but a little bigger. I think that building only has 10 apartments instead of 15, so it's a little bit bigger. There's a little bit more room on this site. It enables us to get a little more in there. And that's it in a nutshell. I mean, I can answer whatever questions you've got. I mean,
So we got a spot on Front Street, Clinton Street.
yeah, and there's a couple others.
Where are the 7 other?
There's 5 on Front Street, Front Street altogether. There's the new construction on Clinton Street. There's one house at 10 Mather, which is adjacent to the project we just completed, north of Maine. And there's an interesting story behind that. 10 Mather is a building we tried to buy. We buy a lot of these properties, and it was vacant at the time, and the owners refused to sell it to us. And we offered them a decent price. They said, well, they don't like First Wood Action Council, so they're not going to sell it to us. Well, then they proceeded to lose it for taxes, and we ended up getting it from the county for about $1,000. So, good deal for us. I mean, it's a strategy for the homeowners. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, they had the opportunity to sell it. I mean, but anyways, it's a vacant building. When we took it over from the county, there were squatters, and they're no longer there. I guess, well, there's one other building on Dickinson Street, 27 Dickinson Street. Vacant house, we've owned it for quite some time, waiting to put it into a project. And so it's kind of separate from the others. There's one on Winding Way too, I forgot about that one, but the Dickinson Street building has been sitting there vacant for some time, and so we put it into this project, and also buy another house on Winding Way. And all of those together, that makes up to 9 sites.
So I personally, I think scattered site is it's more challenging for developers. You're getting the challenges of dealing with X number of old buildings, but I think ultimately it helps. You're shoring up neighborhoods. You're cementing quality anchors in neighborhoods. So I think developers coming in with a scattered site project, even though it might be slightly less units, is probably having more spillover effect into the surrounding neighborhoods, and encouraging other private investment around those areas. I mean, how many people have been encouraged to fix up their places on Front Street now because, gosh, the neighbor looks so good, So you're keeping up with the Joneses, and your Joneses just happen to be First Wood Action Council in this case.
Right.
But having said that, there's the question of we have all of these projects happening. The other large First Ward building, I can't remember the name of the developer off the top of my head.
187 Clinton.
Yeah. What's the name of the developer? Doesn't matter. 187 Clinton. So I was originally concerned that they're going after the same set of money, the same grant cycle, but it's not correct. They are a 4% tax credit thing and not
That's my understanding.
different. So that's it. So we have 2 rolling parallel on Clinton Street. That's great. The new concern, of course, is that YWCA did not get funding in this round. So they're probably going to be in the same round of HCR that now First Ward is going to be.
Are they going for homeless funding, or?
I think it's the same. I mean, they were just denied in the ones that just came out. I think it's the same. I think it's a tax credit program, same as they're going after. So my concern is we're going to have 2 really good proposals going in the June round, and speaking of all the timeliness concerns, we should allocate this funding for First Wood Action Council if they come out of June with not getting an award, what's our backup plan for this money before we do?
So I'm not sure either that the Y is applying for the same pool. of
Sorry, so we
money.
need to, yeah.
I will,
yeah.
I'll look into
Okay.
that. But I guess I would just speak broadly to that and say ultimately it is the state making the
Sure.
funding decisions, but the only way we can get funded is if we have strong applications in that pool.
I'm not arguing with any of that, I'm just.
We don't see at this point that they're competing against each other. And in fact, the city just got that pro housing communities designation from the governor. So as part of that, it's supposed to prioritize Binghamton and funding applications. It's supposed to kind of elevate our status.
Sure, except it didn't work this time.
With the YWCA?
With the HDR, I mean, with no Binghamton projects, unfortunately.
Well, you know, it reminds me of,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if anybody's interested in horse racing,
Yeah.
but, you know, sometimes one owner will have 2 horses in the Kentucky Derby. I mean, it's like, you might think they're racing against themselves, but they look at it, they've got 2 chances.
Yeah, I know. But no, it's good for the city to have multiple great applications. But it makes me concerned for, the individual continuation of either.
It's a competitive world.
Yeah. So, having said that, so the city's looking at 577,000. You're looking at how much from Restore New York, do you think?
I thought that the application was for somewhere around 3 million, depending on whether there was lead and asbestos. I think they're still nailing down the details on
I
that.
guarantee there's some lead and asbestos somewhere.
That's my feeling too.
And then overall cost of the project's about,
I can't give you definite figures right now. We're probably in the area of 15 million. But that's, don't quote me on that. It's not fun.
on. Oh.
I'm gonna allow her to speak. Hi,
Hi, I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that I was here and I've been here the whole time. We just had some challenges, so. This is an interesting, exciting project.
Thank you. What were you just saying? I think $15 million was the last thing I said. Probably lots of lead and asbestos. I'm curious if, so are all of these vacant, or are some of the places occupied?
One of the worst buildings has 2 tenants on Front Street near the Red Oak. It's really unsightly coming into town. There's another house down closer to Winding Way that has 1 tenant. So we've got a total of 3 tenants who will be eligible for relocation benefits. They also most likely will have the option to move back in if they meet the program requirements but even if they're not eligible for the housing that we're constructing, they'll still get relocation benefits. So it's not like they're.
Who's that through? Do you facilitate the relocation?
We handle the relocation.
Okay.
We have a relocation consultant that works with us from out of town, specializes in that, but our staff does it under his guidance.
It's just like one of those situations where it's like when you're doing the renovations, it's like you don't want to, the best you can, you don't want to perpetuate like the housing problem when you're trying to fix it at the same time. Yeah. That's
I mean, they have to be willing to, I mean, we had a person on Mather Street when we started that project. We wanted to meet with them about relocation and they refused to participate. I mean, they finally did get some money, but they were very reluctant to discuss relocation. It's not because they wanted to stay there. It's just, there were some issues. I mean, whatever. But we've given relocation benefits just about everybody that's been in any building that we have renovated. And in several cases, they've moved back into the projects. Now, I mean, we relocated somebody and shortly afterwards, his name was in a paper for illegally selling automatic weapons. I can tell you, didn't come back. I mean, you know, not somebody, selling automatic weapons illegally. It's not somebody that we're going to want in one of our buildings.
And I want to tack on to address one of your concerns in the conversation we had before the meeting really started. Jerry and myself were talking about potentially using soft costs. Soft costs can be done now, regardless of the grant, the final grant, as long as the final project, whenever it's done, still meets the low mod requirements. So then, but that can include environmental
So
abatement,
pre-development,
pre-development, engineering, architecture, relocation expenses, the purchase of the properties, all of that can be done now and essentially fairly quickly.
Okay.
And then even if that grant is not received this round, as long as, and we would have a strong, Jerry knows my agreements, as long as the agreement's strong, in the future, those sites will be developed for low-income housing, but still, everything would still qualify under this.
Very good.
So I want to backtrack. for a
Oh, I was
second.
waiting, local labor, and I couldn't believe you hadn't chimed in.
Well, anything with the First Ward Action Council, they've always actually used WL Klein, which we work very well with, so I wasn't gonna pick on that, but the way I think I'm understanding this is the money that you're putting back in the budget line is actually what you're allocating for the 500,000 here, what you have left, correct?
Yeah, we're taking all the unencumbered, so basically excluding those other 3 projects we're working on, all the rest of the money poured into this project, or into a line that could fund this project.
So when I asked you if anyone could apply to it, why would you say that they could apply to it when this money's already being allocated ahead of time?
In theory, that's a separate RL altogether. That would be between the mayor's
Well,
office
but
and
I
city
mean,
council.
I'm not saying I'm against it, I just feel like my question was kind of answered in an indirect way, and I'm taking a little personal offense.
No, in theory, someone could, but
But if it's
to-
not, there's no, you shouldn't answer in theory, you should have said, no, this is getting allocated for this, because I agree with it, it needs to be done in the way the allocation is,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
I think we thought that was clear that these are related, but I can understand that.
I mean, that's why I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, okay, if there's gonna be this money, like, the people that reach out to us, and it's like,
Yeah.
wait a second, I mean,
the first RL is put the money into this bucket here. The second RL is what to do with the bucket.
yeah.
So in theory, when you were asking that, I was thinking of it as, we're putting the money into the thing. We'd like to put it into a housing project. So in theory, someone could. Jerry's project just happens to be perfect for that right now and able to go. So it wasn't meant as any offense. It was merely trying to keep them the RLs separated, so you understood that the 2 RLs technically are independent, but they are related in this specific instance because the mayor's office had already had a plan for it. But if something else was to come along and the mayor's office approved to it, yeah, there'd be no objection to it personally. The first RL should happen regardless.
Yes.
But that is the thing, like, they are related, but the consolidation of lines has to happen.
Yeah.
No, I get that, but that's where when I asked that question, I'm thinking, okay, these are 2 so separate that that's a different pot of money, so I mean.
Oh, no, it's the same pot of money.
In theory, I would like an actual answer next time. No, I don't.
I feel like I helped that one guy try to move out on Mather Street, which I was helping Rebecca. I was volunteering when she was doing the RAP program, the relocation assistance
Because we
program.
did ask other people for assistance for
Yeah.
that program. He might have been one of them.
Right. That's kind of the firsthand experience with some of these projects, unfortunately.
Sure, you
And
know
he-
this too,
yeah.
then. Go ahead, sorry.
And it's just like I'm sure he probably had like mental health issues, but also had like formerly been houseless. So like that's why I think he was resistant to leaving his permanent shelter.
I think that's why we
Yeah.
contacted other people for assistance, because whatever issues he had was beyond us at that point.
What were you gonna say, Mary?
I was just gonna say, and I'm sure that you know this already, but like the distinction between having housing and having housing that's safe and quality, and there is sometimes that growing pain and having to relocate tenants, but with the projects that Jerry's speaking of, they're often being relocated out of bad housing and have the opportunity to come back into safe housing. So kind of the long-term look on it.
The one was selling AK-47s. When we found that out, we were kind of shook up, actually. This is kind of belligerent. We think, yeah.
Terry, when you bid this project out, does it fall under Wick's law and Public Works? For the GC, for the developer for the GC?
I'm not sure what that is, but
So Wick's law on a Public Works project, you have the general contractor, then you have to have a separate electrical package and a separate high-vac plumbing mechanical package.
no.
Because I don't think with the funding you get, I don't think it falls under Public Works. That's why I was asking.
No, I've never heard anything like that. Basically, this program, the tax credit program, you put together a development team. And the development team is usually your general contractors, your architect, the owner, and
And then the general subs obviously.
yeah, right. It's totally up to the. I mean, we're just known to the general. Klein is one of the best contractors we've dealt with.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you that.
They're a union contract.
I know that, but I've heard that the carpenters union is possibly, they're maybe going for a $2 increase, $2 an hour increase in wages. We're thinking that's good, but that's gonna be driving our price up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what their union negotiates. I know our contract's good for the next 3 years, so laborers will build the job. Keep it under cost.
Got any further questions or comments?
I do not.
What's the overall time horizon for starting and finishing?
Well, ideally, we get funded the first time, and then we'll start about 6 months after we're notified. Usually, once we get notified, we have to adhere to a very strict schedule that's established by New York State Homes and Community Renewal. And that schedule carries through construction, which with a project like this would probably take about 1.5 years once we start. Typically, when you have the closing on the funding and the tax credits, we start the next day. And in fact, part of the program is the state, Homes and Community Renewal will want a picture of us actually having work done the next day. So, it's intense. One of the reasons for that is because it is partly funded by tax credits. And you have investors, which are typically banks, who purchase the tax credits and they plan on using them during a certain period of time. And the price that they're paying for the credits is connected to when they want to use them. And if there's any delays, that affects the value of the credits. So it's written into the agreement we have that if we don't complete the project in time, and if we don't occupy it on time, there's an ugly little thing called tax credit adjusters, where they can get money back from what they've invested. That's something, we don't want to have happen. So the point is, once we start, we have to stick to the schedule.
Of these 9 sites, you have site control of all 9 now, or?
Yeah, we got pretty good site control, and we're gonna own like 4 of them, which is unusual. I mean,
Before anything starts.
yeah.
I was gonna bring up actually 41 Clinton is an Answer property,
Uh-huh.
right? So that would, that one's coming from the city, that would come back to council. That's one of the properties that was in the answered settlement. So once the city closes on it, that would have to come back to council for
Sure.
sale to, or transfer to First Ward Action Council.
And when we submit, we'll need a letter of site control from the city
Yes.
on that property.
Any idea when that settlement's gonna?
We're still in the process of closing. There's all kinds of issues with the title insurance, as you can imagine, on some of those. So,
Probably LLCs that haven't been around in 10 years, so.
yeah.
All right.
Are we gonna see a draft agreement?
Uh,
Or did you guys hand one out there? I'm sorry, I don't know what paper has been handed out.
we don't have one. We have just the project overview that Jerry shared. I'm sure we could see if council could provide a draft agreement.
It would be
That'd be
based off of, sorry, it would be based somewhat off the CDBG boilerplate that we currently use with some modifications.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just always good to see things and to
Final
get a better picture.
Can we work on that, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, it's just their boilerplate. I'd have to figure out what needs to be added to it.
Okay, that'd be great.
And
Now,
so,
occasionally it comes up that people want to know how long are they going to be affordable. There's usually two regulatory, what are called regulatory periods that come into play. One connected to tax credits and one connected to the money from the Housing Trust Fund. The tax credit regulatory period is only 15 years, but usually there's money from the New York State Housing Trust Fund, and that regulatory period is 50 years. So it's pretty certain that the regulatory period, meaning that we will have to operate them during the 50 years, is affordable housing, according to a rent structure that's approved by New York State Homes and Community Renewal. The rents are pretty much locked into place. You have a budget that you submit at the beginning of the project, and you can have rent increases every year, typically between 2% and 5%, which you have to do in order to keep up with expenses. But it's affordable housing for at least 50 years. Some of our earlier projects only had a 20-year regulatory period, and we've reached that's no longer the case. Just so you know where we're at. In those early projects, we've completed the 20 years, and we're continuing to operate them as affordable housing the same way that we did before, although there's no longer a regulatory period. It's not like we're converting them into student housing or anything like that. That's not happening.
And rent structures, is it a maximum percent of income or based on the market or what's
No, it's not based on, actually, it's not based on either. The rent structure is based on the income group that you're serving. And everybody that's in this project will have incomes that are less than 60% of the area's median income. And we'll be putting the rent structure together. And it's likely we'll have people at 40%, 50%, 60% of the area's median income, and there'll be rents for each group. But we don't adjust it based on the income of the tenant that's coming in, which in some cases may be like at the housing authority.
Yes.
It's more dependent upon the tenant's income. That's not the case with us. Although they're low income rents. I mean, just to give you an idea, I've been told before, never say more than you have to. And here I go, on and on. But at the risk of disclosing something, but we've got nothing to hide. The rents for a 1-bedroom would be about $550, and the rents for a 2-bedroom, these are based on the rents for North Main, would be $733, which is not bad.
About that?
Any other questions? Yeah, I think.
No, that was helpful. That's what I was wondering about.
It'd be nice to see just like the list of properties that you are gonna be in this. Oh, there we go. Cool.
Is it?
But, awesome. Thank you. Nobody's got anything else? I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned?
Second.
So you're not on a committee, where?
It's not a committee, so I'm looking at me.
Adjourn? All right. Oh, Kenya's the other person.
And you've actually been on our project.
All
Yeah, I have.
Actually, Jerry, I
All right.
will chat with you in a minute after.
Steve?
Thanks for coming down.